Okay, so when I say Nepal, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's Mount Everest, right? That giant snow-capped peak. But here's the thing, that's just the rooftop. The real story of this country is so much deeper, way more complex, and honestly full of surprises. So let's go beyond those peaks and really dig into what makes Nepal, well, Nepal. And a great place to start is with this quote. It's from the guy who literally unified modern Nepal, Prithvi Narayan Shah. And what he said is just perfect. He called it a garden of four-color 36 castes. He didn't see it as one single thing, but this beautiful, diverse garden. And that idea, this unity that comes from incredible diversity, that's the key. You got to keep that in mind as we go through this. And boom, speaking of diversity, look at this. This is just wild. It's hard to even wrap your head around the fact that these two places are in the same country. You've got Mount Everest, the highest point on the entire planet, and then a spot that's barely 59 meters above sea level. That vertical drop is just staggering, and it perfectly sets the stage for a country built on extremes. All right, so we're talking about a land of extremes. But how does that geography really shape the nation? Okay, so Nepal is basically split into three main geographic zones. You've got the high mountains, the Himalaya. Not many people live up there for obvious reasons. Then there's the hill region, the Bahad. This covers most of the country's land, about 68%, and you've got a good chunk of the population there, around 43%. But, and this is the part that might surprise you, it's the flat plains, the Terai. That's the real population hub. It's only 17% of the land, but more than half the country lives there. Yeah, look at this bar chart. It just makes it so clear, doesn't it? It kind of flips what you might think about Nepal completely on its head. We think mountains, but the reality is most Nepalis live on the flat plains. It's really a nation of farms and busy towns, all sitting in the shadow of those giants. And of course, we can't forget the mountains entirely, because it's not just Everest. Get this, 8 of the world's 10 highest peaks are right here in Nepal. That's just mind-blowing. It really is the land of giants. So, you have this land of incredible extremes. And what kind of people does a landscape like that produce? Well, as you might guess, an equally incredible mosaic of people. It makes sense, right? Different geography doesn't just mean different weather, it means different ways of life, different cultures. I mean, just take a look at this number, 142. That's how many recognized ethnic groups there are. Think about that. Every valley, every single hillside has basically nurtured its own unique community, its own traditions, its own identity. And where you have that many ethnic groups, you're going to have a ton of languages, right? 123 languages spoken as a mother tongue. That's incredible. Nepal isn't just a country, it's like a living, breathing library of human language. And what about faith? Well, this chart gives us a great snapshot. The majority is Hindu, no doubt. But you can't forget Nepal is the birthplace of the Buddha, so there's a really significant Buddhist population. And then you have Islam, the indigenous Karat faith, and more, all living side by side. What's really cool is that in a lot of places, these beliefs don't just coexist, they actually blend together in some really beautiful, unique ways. It's this unique cultural mix that produces things the whole world recognizes. I'm talking about things like the living goddess, the Kamari, the unbelievable bravery of the Gurkha soldiers, and, of course, the incredible, almost superhuman strength and endurance of the Sherpas, who make climbing those giant peaks possible. Okay, so we've got the land, we've got the people, but how does this nation actually run? What's the economic engine? Well, true to form, it's pretty unique. And that leads us to a really big question. You're a landlocked country, sandwiched between two of the biggest powers on Earth. So how do you make your economy work? The answer is, well, it's pretty remarkable, and it's definitely not simple. A huge part of the answer is this, a remittance economy. Basically, millions of Nepalis work outside the country, in the Gulf, in Malaysia, all over, and they send money back home to their families. That money has become the absolute lifeblood of the economy. It helps pull people out of poverty, and frankly, it keeps the whole country's finances going. But it's a double-edged sword, for sure. On the plus side, you get all this foreign money coming in, people learn new skills, and it keeps unemployment down. But the downside is real. You get a brain drain where your most talented people leave. Workers can be exploited, and it leaves a shortage of skilled people at home to, actually build up the country. All right, so we've covered the land, the people, the economy. What about the politics? How did Nepal become the country it is today? Let me tell you, it was a long and bumpy road. I mean, really turbulent. After it was first unified, you had this century-long period where prime ministers just inherited the job. There was a little spark of democracy in the 50s, but the kings snuffed it out pretty quick. It wasn't until 2008, after a really tough civil war, that the monarchy was finally abolished and Nepal became the federal republic we see today. All of that history led to the Constitution of 2015, which is really built on three big modern ideas. First is federalism, spreading power out to 7 provinces instead of keeping it all in the capital. Second is secularism, making the government officially neutral when it comes to religion. And third, and this is so important, is inclusivity. It was a real attempt to officially acknowledge and empower all those 142 ethnic groups we talked about. So that brings us to today. How does this modern republic fit into the rest of the world, especially from its very unique and kind of tricky spot on the map? At its core, Nepal's approach to the world is all about peace and staying neutral. It's been part of the non-aligned movement for ages, and it follows these principles called Panchashil. It's basically a commitment to respecting other countries, not meddling in their business, and always trying to solve problems peacefully. And it really walks the talk. It's been in the UN since 1955 and is actually one of the biggest contributors to peacekeeping missions all over the world. It was also a founding member of SARC, which is the big regional group in South Asia, so it's very invested in keeping things stable, both globally and closer to home. And this all comes back to the fundamental fact of life for Nepal. It's a landlocked country, strategically and, you could say, very delicately, placed right between two of the world's biggest powers, China to the north and India to the south. 2 giants. And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? The question for Nepal's future. How does this ancient garden, with all its diversity, born from crazy geography and a rocky history, how does it keep blooming and carve out its own destiny when it's tucked between 2 modern-day giants? That's the challenge for sure, but it's also its greatest opportunity.